Imagine running a nationwide criminal empire, from behind bars, no phone, no laptop, no freedom, and yet power, influence, money, and murder orders kept flowing. This is the true story of Larry Hoover, the man who turned a maximum security prison cell into a command center for a criminal organization that stretched across the U.S. for decades. You've heard of El Chapo. You've heard of Pablo Escobar. But Hoover? He ran the streets without ever being on them. Larry Hoover was born in 1950 in Jackson, Mississippi, but it was in Chicago's South Side that his legacy began. As a teen, Hoover joined a local gang called the Supreme Gangsters. Violent, organized, focused, but he wasn't just muscle, he was smart, strategic. A thinker in a world of killers. By the late 1960s, Hoover had merged his gang with another to form the Gangster Disciples, a massive organization that soon became one of Chicago's most dominant street gangs. Their specialty? Drugs, extortion, protection, murder. Hoover rose quickly, not just as a gang leader, but as a political symbol in black communities, presenting himself as a man of the people. But behind that image, he was running one of the most feared outfits in Chicago. In 1973, Hoover was arrested for ordering the murder of a fellow gang member he suspected of betrayal. He was convicted and sentenced to 150 to 200 years in prison, but that didn't stop him. If anything, prison became his throne. Using coded messages, trusted lieutenants, and a network of loyal soldiers, Hoover continued to control the Gangster Disciples from his cell in Statesville Correctional Center and later in ADX Florence, the most secure prison in the U.S. Inside, Hoover had guards paid off, inmates acting as couriers, and even prison counselors unknowingly helping him send messages. Drugs moved, money flowed, orders were given, all from a man who hadn't touched the streets since Nixon was in office. By the 1990s, the Gangster Disciples weren't just a street gang, they were a criminal enterprise. Hoover rebranded them under Growth and Development, creating the illusion of a reform movement while continuing to control drug trafficking operations in over 35 U.S. states. Even politicians and local activists were fooled or manipulated. Some believed Hoover had truly changed. Others were too afraid to speak out. He was influencing voter drives, community programs, and even had allies talking about parole, but the FBI wasn't buying it. In 1995, after a decade-long undercover investigation, federal agents brought the hammer down. The operation, called Operation Headache, used wiretaps, informants, and surveillance to gather overwhelming evidence that Hoover was running the cartel from his prison cell. Hoover was indicted on drug conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, and continuing criminal enterprise charges. At the time of his conviction, the FBI estimated the Gangster Disciples were making $100 million per year. With Hoover still calling the shots, he was transferred to ADX Florence Supermax Prison in Colorado, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. 24-hour surveillance. No human contact. No gang contact. Total lockdown, but even then, his legend grew. In recent years, Hoover's name has returned to headlines not because of crime, but because of celebrity advocacy. Kanye West and Drake publicly called for Larry Hoover's release, claiming he had reformed. In 2021, Kanye held a benefit concert titled Free Larry Hoover to raise awareness for prison reform. His wife, Kim Kardashian, even spoke to the White House, but the Department of Justice wasn't convinced. They argued that Hoover remains a symbol of gang power and has never truly renounced violence. As of now, Larry Hoover remains in ADX Florence, locked down 23 hours a day, with no release in sight. Larry Hoover didn't just bend the rules, he rewrote them. He built a criminal network across the U.S., from a prison cell, without a gun, without a phone, just power, fear, loyalty. Whether you see him as a criminal mastermind or a misunderstood revolutionary, one thing is certain: he changed the way America views prison power and organized crime. If you want more true stories like this, raw, real, and straight from the underworld, make sure you subscribe to Cortex Crime. Leave a comment below. Do you think Larry Hoover should ever be released? Or was justice already served?